Welcome back. This is the gameplay video, so this is where the fun starts. The gameplay is basically separated in three different steps or phases. The first one is the cycle phase, the second one is the deck phase, and the third one is the refresh phase. So, first, the cycle phase. In the cycle phase, this is where the heroes and the darkness will activate and go at each other. Basically, the first thing that's gonna happen is the hero cycle. In the hero cycle, there is no structure, so it's not like in other games where one player goes and then the next player goes and so on. You can really alternate between one and the other. So I could move one square and then the other hero could make an attack, and then it could come back to me, and I could move some more or attack myself, and then so on. So there's no order of play. Each hero gets a base two movements in the hero cycle per hero cycle. So with one movement point, you could move one space either orthogonally or diagonally. Or you can pick up a treasure if it's in the same space as your hero, or you can interact with an object, such as quest objects. So sometimes you're gonna have to, if we go back to rescue my daughter, you're gonna have to stand next to a token representing Lucy and spend non-combat action, which costs you one movement point, to interact with her and get her out of the webs. So that's an example of how you can interact with quest objects. Each hero will get a hand of five hero cards per cycle. With those cards, you have really three types of cards. You've got the actions, the reactions, and the interrupts. In the hero cycle, only actions and reactions can be played. Interrupts will be played in the darkness cycle, that we'll see a bit later on. You can play up to four cards in front of you on your player board. There are four action slots on the player board, so you can play one card per slot. Only one of those cards can be an action card. So that's one of the important thing that some players we've seen have misunderstood. But you can play only one action card per cycle, and it doesn't have to be the first one or the last one. You can play it anytime. So you could play an action and then three reactions, or up to three reactions, or play one reaction, one action, one reaction. It doesn't matter where you play, in which card slot you play it. Some of those cards will add movement points to your hero for that cycle. So a good example is Hustle. It's a card that every hero has. Basically, it adds two movement points, so you can move further, or either further away from the monster or get closer to attack. The combat system works with the cards too, so you can't attack a monster without a card. Again, that's something that some players, I guess, misunderstood at first, but really the only thing you can do without hero cards is move or interact with the tile objects. So, two movement points and your cards. I'll show you guys a couple of cards right now, just so it's I guess easier to understand. So the first one I wanted to show you is Smite. It's the basic weapon attack for the Acolyte. If we look at the top right section, well, you have the name of the card first, and then just under that you get the amount of damage it does. So damage in this game isn't really dependent of your weapon, or of your weapon. The action card, or in this case the attack card, tells you how much damage it does, Some weapons can add to that. We'll maybe see that a bit later on. But the base damage is determined by the card, and then you have the range. So in this case, it says weapon. So basically, it's an attack with your weapon. So if we have a look at the Acolyte's weapon, we'll see the range it has. Usually it's 1, but it could be some melee weapons have a range of 2, and then you've got your ranged weapon. If we look at the bottom right corner, you see a little 4 curved lines. In this case, only one of them is red. Each red line represents an AP, an action point. So every time you play a card that has either one or multiple red lines in the corner, you're gonna add as much APs to the track on the darkness board. So in this case, you would add 1 AP. Again, we'll see a bit later on what AP does and how it interacts with the game. In the middle of the cards at the bottom, you have the 2 arrows. The top one means the card is in action. The bottom one means it's a reaction. So when they're red, that's what it means. And if both arrows are red, such as is the case with Smite, it means it can be played as either or. So you could play Smite as an action, and then you couldn't play any other action in your hero cycle, or you could play it as a reaction. But then if you've been following with the action restriction, you're probably wondering, why would you play this as an action? The only reason, at least so far, to play it as an action is that most of the buffs in the game add dice damage or reduce AP usage or whatever for combat actions only. So it's very important to read the card correctly when you play buffs most of the time. If we think about pretty much every buff there is in the game so far, it only affects action cards. So if you play an action reaction, you have to play it as an action to get the buff, or you could simply play it as a reaction, but then the buffs don't affect it, so you play it as is. On the left side of the card, I guess that's a tricky part for some, and even in my group for the first few games. This is the movement restriction or slash bonus slash debuff, or I don't know how to call it. Basically, the first one on top, the empty circle, tells you this is what you get if you haven't moved at all, and you won't move for the rest of the cycle. So that's one thing I will explain it right now. You have to consider all of your movement for all of the hero cycle. Even if you plan on moving later on in the cycle, you need to take it into account when you play any cards. So if you played Smite, and if you haven't moved yet, you could be tempted to reduce your target number to hit by 2. So that's basically what it means. If you haven't moved at all, you get -2 target number. So it's going to be easier to hit the enemies. But then if you think you may move, or if you know you're going to move later on in the cycle, you have to take it into account right now. So let's say I wanted to move 2 spaces after killing the minion in front of me. I wanted to move 2 spaces to get closer to other minions or to the other heroes, let's say. Then I would consider, right now that I have moved my normal movement. Normal movement is the 3rd circle, so the full circle, where it says yes right now. So basically it simply tells you, yes, you can use the card, but you get no buff, no debuffs. Between those 2 circles, there is the cautious move. So that's for if you moved half of your base move rounded up. So every hero, as I said earlier, starts with 2 base movement, but with better gear, and probably later down the road we may see heroes starting with more than 2 movement points. So uh, just know that as of now, with base gear, basically the first cycle tells you if you move 0 space, the second one if you move 1 space, and the third one is if you've moved 2 space. The last one down the line, down the card, which tells you +1 target number. So this is a debuff for your attack, so it's harder for you to hit the target. Um, what it's saying is this is an aggressive movement. So that's the 4th type of movement possible in the game. So aggressive movement means you've used a move card. So you don't necessarily have to move more than 2 spaces to consider your move an aggressive move. But if you've played or plan to play in the same cycle one of the move cards, every hero has hustle and sprint cards that are both aggressive move cards. Some have other move cards. If you plan or have already used one of those cards in the cycle, then your card automatically needs to be played as an aggressive or with an aggressive move. So in this case, it would simply be harder for you to hit. But then some other cards you need to have an aggressive move, and then or it's easier to hit if you have an aggressive move. So it can change depending on the cards you're playing. What's important to know too is only the cards with the bolded word move are move cards or aggressive movement cards. There are other cards in the game that will give you additional movement points, yet are not considered an aggressive move. Most of them will have a little the last phrase on the description of the power will be not considered a move. Some don't have it. I'm not exactly sure why that is as of now, but what we've heard so far is that if the card doesn't have a bolded move keyword on it, then it's not an aggressive move card. So, and Smite, just to complete the card, obviously in the middle of the card, just under the art, you're gonna get a description of what it does. So in this case, you could optionally play it right after Guided by the Light, which is an advanced card for the Acolyte. And the Smite on its own deals damage to one target within weapon range. So basically it tells you what it said at the top. Smite is an interrupt card if played after Guided by the Light. So right now it's an action reaction card, but it has something special that if you use it right after Guided by the Light, it becomes an interrupt. So basically you could use it in the darkness cycle, but only if you play Guided by the Light before. So that's Smite. I'm gonna show you a second card of the Acolyte, one of his spell, Last Rites. So basically that's the big area of effect damage card. It does 1 damage too, has a range of 4, so instead of saying weapon or something like that, it's telling you how far away you can cast it. So 4 to the center of the spell. You'll see why a bit later on in the description. Also, I'm gonna explain it right now. If the range says weapon, then you'll use your main hand weapon for the attack. We'll see later a bit later how you use or how you create your dice pools. If it says range 4, like Last Rites does, you're not using your weapon. Obviously it's a spell in this case, so I guess it's thematically it makes a lot of sense, but it created some confusion from some players. So if it says range 4 or any other type of range, anything but weapon, basically, it's telling you that you're not using your weapon. So in this case, you would use your offhand item to cast your spell. So the bonuses from your offhand items would be used. We'll get back to it in a few minutes. Bottom right corner tells you it's 2 AP in this case, so you would add 2 to the darkness track. This one is an action, you have no choice, you can't play it as a reaction. If we look at the movement bonus or buffs, debuffs, you have something that's similar to Smite, because if you haven't moved and won't move in the hero cycle, you get 2 extra d10 to make your attack, so you've got a lot more chances of hitting targets. And it goes all the way down to minus 1 d10. So you can play it whether you don't move or move anything up to aggressively, but your chances of hitting targets lowers with your movement. This card has the Holy keyword on it. Right now with the base set, Holy doesn't do anything, but if you play with the Shamblers or any other monster from the undead race, you'll get to use Holy cards, because only cards with Holy keyword can kill the undead for sure. Some undead may come back to life when you kill them with anything other than Holy cards. So basically, the Holy keyword tells you it's impossible for the undead to come back to life if you kill them with this card. And then the description says targets are hit with Holy power. Again, the Holy keyword. Range extends out and across 1 square per faith. Nullifies resurrect. So you have it right there. It nullifies resurrect because it's a Holy card. So you've got the information twice on the card. And we won't discuss faith in this video. If I have time, I may do specific hero decks video later on. But just know that faith is the big difference, or the big what distinguishes the acolyte from the rest of the heroes. So he uses faith to power his cards. In this case, you would hit only 1 square with the card on its own, but you can add additional square per faith you have. You see in the example the way it expands out in a cross shape. Just to give you more information about last rites, know that if you add a 5th faith, you would continue the cross pattern. So the 5th would be 1 above the number 1 in this diagram, and then 6 would be to the right of 2, and so on. Also know that the actual diagram in this case, if there is a monster in the space with the 3 on it, you couldn't really play the card, because you could play the card, but you couldn't target the center square that's on the diagram, because you don't have line of sight. So you would have to be the spot where the hero is right now with the little arrow would have to be one space either to the left or right, so he can see he could target the central space. But it's a diagram, so it's not really a concern. And if you can play it even if there's no monster in number 3. So I mean the card isn't wrong. It's just could be misleading. All right, so I've set up a quick example here. We've got the acolyte and the archer facing off against 3 grubbers and their lair. So it's not a big challenge, but it's simply to show you guys how combat works. So like I said before, you can't attack in Myth without a card. The only thing the heroes can do without cards is their base movement of 2. The first thing, obviously the combat works differently if you're a ranged hero or if you're a melee hero, but the acolyte is a little bit of both, because he's a melee hero when he attacks with his base item of which is the wooden plank. So if I were to use Smite, I would use the wooden plank. But if he casts spells, then he is a ranged hero, and he's gonna use his Wyrn Book of or Wyrn Prayer Book. The archer is always a ranged hero, obviously. So we'll see how it works. The first thing the heroes will do in this hero cycle. This is the start of a hero cycle. Uh, Obviously, for spaces reason, I'm very limited here, so I've removed the hero boards. Just know that those are the items equipped. The stick and twine is the base weapon for the archer, and the arrow bag is his offhand item. Uh, this allows him to store 4 ammo. He needs something to store his arrows in, so he can use his attacks. So the first thing I'm gonna have the archer do is attack the lair. I think if I can get rid of it quickly, then this style will be no problem at all. So first thing before you play your cards and start attacking, since the attack will be a ranged attack, I have to see if the hero has line of sight. Line of sight in this game is I think very permissive. So what I mean by that is it's fairly easy to have line of sight, but there are a few circumstances where you won't have it. Basically, you have line of sight until you face something that blocks line of sight. So what does block line of sight? Monsters will block line of sight to what's behind them. Lairs block line of sight, as you can, well, I hope you can see, they're surrounded by a red line. So all red lines block line of sight. So in this case, the space here is surrounded by a red line, so this blocks the line of sight of the acolyte in this direction. The other thing that blocks line of sight are traps and walls. So in this case, there is no trap, there is no wall, but the red lines block line of sight, monsters block line of sight, and lairs block line of sight. The only exception to that is for the archer. The archer can shoot through monsters. So red lines, lairs, walls, and traps still block the line of sight of the archer, but monsters don't. So he could attack a monster behind another one. So in this case, the archer has line of sight on the 3 grubbers and the lair. Okay, I'm gonna explain it later. And the acolyte only has line of sight on those 2 grubbers and the 3rd one too, but he can't see the lair. The way line of sight is calculated is if you can draw an uninterrupted line from any corner of the space you're on to any corner of the space you're targeting. So in this case, the archer can draw a line from, let's say, this corner to any corner for the 3 grubbers, and he even sees the little corner here of the lair. So even without his special ability of shooting through monsters, he could still attack that lair. But let's say there were 4 minion here, the archer could still attack the lair. I'll leave that grubber there just for the example. So in this case, I want to have the archer attack the lair to try and get rid of it as soon as possible. The first card I'm gonna play is Vision of the Mark. Vision of the Mark at the top tells you that if you combo it with an attack, it adds 1 damage to the attack. It adds 1 d10 for your dice pool and 1 fate dice to your dice pool. You can only use it if you move cautiously, no movement or move cautiously in the whole cycle. And it may be played before any attack action using ammo. So I'm gonna need to combo that card with an attack card, an attack action, as you can see it's mentioned here, using ammo. So I've determined that I have line of sight. Now I have to check if I have the range. The card I want to play for the attack is, I'm probably going to mess it up, but it's Charon's Payment. It tells me it does 3 damage, and it has a range, the same range as my weapon. My weapon is the Stick and Twine, which has a range of 4. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got range, I've got line of sight, so my card is played right here. Now I need to build my dice pool. How this works is, on your hero token, you will have your base dice pool. Every hero has the same base dice pool for now, at least. 1d10 and 1 fate dice. So you grab 1d10, 1 fate dice. And then, since I attack with my weapon, it says it right here, I attack with my weapon, I get to add whatever my weapon adds. So, Stick and Twine, I add another d10. And then, Vision of the Mark grants me for the combo plus 1d10 plus 1 fate dice. And remember, it does plus 1 damage. So, Charon's Payment, instead of doing 3 damage, it's now doing 4 damage. And since I haven't moved at all, and let's say I won't move for the rest of the cycle either, so I would get the no move bonus of 3 fate dice. So I'm gonna roll all this to attack the lair. Next thing you have to do is figure out the target number you have to reach on your d10s. All lairs have a target number of 3, so I need one of those d10 to have 3 or more. Just 1 dice will do. So it's time to roll. In this case, I have a 1, a 4, and a 9. So those 2 dice any of those 2 would be a success. So the second one doesn't do anything for me. I hit the target and I do 4 damage to the lair. Damage to lair are kept on the darkness board. So I would remove 4 or do 4 damage there. And now I can have a look at all the symbols I rolled on my fate dice. Since I used my weapon for the attack, I get to look at the weapon's recipes. If we'll see a bit later on with the Acolyte, but for now, I'm just gonna have a look at the Stick and Twine. Stick and Twine tells me -1 threat if I roll 1 nature symbol. I've actually rolled 2, but I can't use the same recipe twice on the same attack. So in this case, it would reduce my threat only 1. And remember, since I've just done 4 damage to the lair, I've also gained 4 threat. So if I was at 0 first, then I would go up to 4. But this ability allows me to reduce it to 3. So that's very good. So now my archer for now is done. I'm not saying his whole cycle is done, but for now he's done playing. And he has done 4 damage to the lair. I just want to show you quickly if the archer was lucky enough to have the longbow equipped when he played this attack. Basically, instead of the +1 d10 he got from the Stick and Twine, he would have gotten +2 d10s and +1 fate dice to the roll. And the special power ability would have been for the same recipe for a nature symbol. He would have a +1 and size next hero cycle. So next hero cycle I would have drawn my end up to 6 cards instead of 5. So kind of give you an idea of what better gear can do for you, and the blue cards is even better. Now, with the Acolyte, I'm thinking I would like very much to get rid of the lair, and also, if I can, damage or kill as many minions as possible. So, like I said before, I currently don't have line of sight to the lair. So what I'll do is, what I can do is use Last Rites. Last Rites allow me, or I'll put it here. Last Rites allow me to do the attack. I've explained it a bit earlier. So instead of targeting the lair, I'm going to target the grubber here in the middle. And if I have enough faith, and for this example, I'm just going to pretend like I have 2 faith. So as you can see on the hero token, the acolyte has a base faith of 1. So when I play last rites, if I don't, well, you know what? Let's say I haven't played any other cards, because I said earlier this was the start of the cycle, so I haven't played any other things. So I would, when I look up for fate, I'll give you a little bit more detail. So I would target the grubber right here. In this case, it's an area of effect attack, so I need to calculate how much faith I have before I grab my dice pool. In this case, I have my base faith of 1. So the description tells me that I get to attack this space for free, and then each faith adds 1 space. So I would also attack the space behind the grubber, which turns out to be one of the space of the lair. So that would be very good. I would get rid of this guy and kill the lair. So I haven't moved, and I don't think I'll move. My range is 4, so I've got plenty of range because it's only 3 spaces away. So I'm good. So since I won't be moving, I get 2 extra d10s. I get the 1d10 from my base dice pool, and then since this is a spell, I won't be using my wooden plank but my worn prayer book. So I get an extra d10 for the attack. And now fate dice, I get my base fate dice for the acolyte plus no, that's all. So I only have 1 fate dice. Alright. So the way it works in this case, so this is only for area of effect or multiple targets cards. You need to beat each target number in your area of effect, or you can't hit the one type of monster or the target number. So I'm gonna start over on that. Don't worry. In this case, the grubbers have a target number of 5, and the lair has a target number of 3. So, in a single roll, with my dice pool I just grabbed, I need to have to spend 1 die on each target number I wish to hit. So, if I were to hit 3 grubbers, since they all have the same target number of 5, I would only need 1 dice or 1 die to roll 5 or more. In this case, since I'm targeting this grubber and the lair, I need 1 die with a 5 or more and 1 die with a 3 or more. I can't spend the same dice on the 2 target numbers. So let's hope I succeed. Yeah, no problem. In fact, I can spend that 3 on the lair, and any of those 3, let's say the 5 on that grubber, or the target number of the grubber, I don't need those. I roll the rage symbol, which won't do anything for me because my recipe on my worn prayer book is the fate symbol. But the good news is I do 1 damage to the grubber, which kills him, and I do 1 damage to the lair, which kills it because it's already got 4 damage and it only has 5 hit points. So I get to remove it. Since I killed the lair, 1 treasure marker would be placed on any space here. I get to choose. Killing 1 minion won't do anything treasure-wise. So, and I would add 2 threat to the acolyte because I've just done 2 points of damage. And I haven't mentioned it earlier, but the Karen's payment would have added 2 APs, and last rites would add 2 AP again, so I would be at AP 4. That's pretty much how it works. It's fairly simple. The thing is, and I've mentioned it already, but you really have to consider how the range is mentioned. So far, that's the best indication I've found of for telling you what item or what gear you're using for the attack. It's always the bow for the archer, so it's fairly easy. For the acolyte, if I'm remembering right, only smite uses ranged weapon, so only smite would use wooden plank, at least in the base acolyte deck. I'm pretty sure there's one or two cards in his advanced deck that uses the weapon too. Every other attack cards are spells, so they would all use the Worn Prayer Book. The soldier has something different a little bit, that there can be a keyword shield, the shield keyword on some cards. If there is, then he uses his shield for the attack. So that's something you have to keep in mind when creating your dice pool. If we have a look quickly at the hero token while we're here, you'll see that first you have first you have a spot where you can put the token for a title you have won. So on your first game you won't have anything here. Next is the hero symbol. So this is for the archer, this is the nature symbol. This can help you figure out which hero is targeted by the priorities of the monster. Also, some traps will use this symbol, so it's a good thing it's there. You need to know it. This is your base movement of 2. Every hero has 2 for now. This is your base vitality, so 5 hit points for the archer, and the courage of the archer, so 6. So it's the exact same thing as for the monster. So the archer would need to roll a 6 or more on a d10 to succeed a courage check. Threat is one of the important mechanic in the game. Basically, you gain threat for some cards will add to your threat. I'm thinking right now about the heal cards of the acolyte. So, but it's gonna be written right on the card, add 3 threat or whatever. But most of the time you'll gain threat by doing damage on minions, captains, lairs, bosses, whatever. So by doing damage. For each point of damage that a hero does, he's gonna add 1 threat on his threat meter on his hero board. The only way to reduce threat is by leaving empty action slot on your hero board. So at the end of the hero cycle or after the hero cycle, if there are still empty slots left, you'll get to reduce your threat. We'll see this in the deck phase a bit later. But the threat is important in the game because it's one of the criteria used to determine who the bad guys will attack. So some monsters, they all have a list of priorities, and actually I think both the crawlers and the grubbers in the base set do have threat as one of their priorities. So again, it's important because if you generate a lot of threat, then you're gonna get a lot of visit. So and you need to manage your threat. And on top of that, even if you were facing monsters that don't care about threat, the game always cares about threat because on each darkness card you're gonna flip during darkness cycle, there's one section, it's called a threat penalty. This happens only if one hero or more, if at least one hero has threat 10. So that's the maximum amount of threat you can have. If you were to generate more threat than that, you would stay at 10. But if at least one hero has threat 10, when a card is flipped, the whole group will suffer a threat penalty. And this is very bad. So it can go from anything from monsters hitting twice, I think, in a cycle. I'm just gonna try and find the darkness card real quick. Here. So in this case, the threat penalty would be heroes are limited to 3 action space for the rest of the act. So you couldn't use your 4th action space for the rest of the act. So I mean, that's a game changer. So, and it's gonna make it harder for you for the rest of the act. So odds are you may reach threat 10 again in the act and then suffer another penalty and so on. So very, very bad. Also know that it's dangerous. It starts being dangerous at threat 8 because some cards, again on the darkness cards, sometimes the event will tell you for this card treat threat 8 as threat 10. So if you have either 8, 9 or 10, if one hero has 8, 9, 10 of threat, then you suffer a threat penalty. So always try to keep your threat at 7 or lower to be on the safer side. I talked earlier about AP on the cards, on the hero cards. So for every AP or action point generated, you're gonna score those on the AP track on the darkness board. Every time that track reaches 6, the darkness cycle triggers. So basically, you'll get to resolve the card you've just played, the one that made the track reach 6. And right after that card, the darkness cycle begins. So it interrupts the heroes. You'll get to play the darkness. We'll see it a bit later on. And then once the monsters are done, the hero cycle resumes. So you keep playing as if nothing happened, but probably you've got a bunch more minions to face, and you've suffered some attacks. If the darkness, the AP track on the darkness board reaches 6 again in the same cycle, again you interrupt right after that card. You interrupt the hero cycle once more, and then a second darkness cycle occurs. So there is no limit to the amount of darkness cycle that can interrupt the hero cycle or each hero cycle. But usually, I guess, in a 2 players game, you can try to manage AP usage as much as possible and not have the darkness cycle trigger every hero cycle. And probably if they trigger every hero cycle, you're probably gonna die pretty fast because you can't kill them as quickly as they come out. In a 5 heroes group, I'm gonna say that it's almost impossible not to have a darkness cycle every hero cycle, and then again you could have easily have 2 per cycle. But it's all about managing that. So even if one of the player wants to play a big attack at a given moment, maybe it's always good to consult with the rest of the group and see what card everyone has and if it's the right time or not. And remember, you can keep one card at the end of the hero cycle. So maybe that player will keep his big attack for next cycle and wait a little bit before using it. And the last rule about AP usage is that the team, all the heroes together, have to spend at least 1 AP per hero cycle. So it's not 1 AP each hero, but really the whole team has to spend at least 1 AP per cycle, or else they will suffer a loitering penalty. This basically removes or reduces the treasure maximum limit per tile by 1 for the rest of the act. So if you were playing on a 6x6 and which has a 5 treasure limit, and you already had 2 treasure pops, so you could usually still have 3 treasures. You would remove one of the marker from the darkness board, so basically you only had 2 left, but that penalty lasts for the rest of the game. So when you go into a 12x12 next, instead of 6 treasure, you can only have 5, and so on. And if you loiter again, you get the penalty again. So you would have only 4 treasures on a 12 by 12 and so on. So that's basically the AP, how the AP works. When the heroes decide that they're done, either because they can't play anything anymore because their action or their card slots are full and they've used all their movement, or simply because maybe they still have space to play but they choose to stop playing at this point, then the hero cycle ends. So this is the only time it ends. If you want to see a great example in the rules on page 14 and 15, you have a timeline of AP usage during a hero cycle and the darkness triggering and going back to the heroes and everything. So at the bottom of the page 14 and 15, have a look at that. It's a great example. And the only thing I wanted to mention also, if you clear a tile completely, so I've discussed already what clearing a tile is, but if you kill all the monsters, lairs, and disarm all the traps, the tile is cleared. And when that happens, every hero resets their threat meter to 0. So basically you remove the token from the track, and you remove the darkness, or you reduce the darkness AP track to 0.2. So again, you remove it from the track, you remove the token from the track. So you basically start over, and the new monsters won't feel threatened by your heroes because they haven't seen them before. That's pretty much how the hero cycle works. Now it's time for the darkness cycle.